What's poppin'?
Poppin'?
Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Werewing.
And I am Adam today. Only today, though.
I think that's the first time I've ever said, Werewing as my name. That feels weird.
That is the first time I've ever heard you refer to yourself like that.
Yeah. What's poppin', wingmen? My name is Werewing11. Welcome back to... Anyway.
Welcome back to the formerly Jamacast podcast.
Yeah, welcome to the What's Poppin' podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about the one, the only, the many,
the one thing that I have very limited experience with.
Five Nights at Freddy's. Because we are... we're hopping on a bandwagon at least 8 months too late.
Yes.
We originally planned doing this episode when Security Breach launched, which was December 16th.
Is it really that long ago we decided to do this?
Yeah,
oh,
it was like on my first or second stream of the game, and we were like, we should do a podcast where I just recap the entire FNAF lore to you.
And I just ask so many questions.
And you agreed to it. So here we are 7.5 months later.
We're finally getting around to it.
So, where do we begin?
Probably the beginning.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do,
like chronologically, maybe.
I'm not gonna do chronological order.
Oh, are we doing an order of like game release?
I'm doing in release order.
Okay.
Because then I get to talk to you about the lore the same way that FNAF fans got to understand it.
Okay, so I'll be understanding everything in the same order that, for some reason, most people do.
Timeline-wise, it might be a little confusing because the timeline goes back and forth a lot. But I will try and explain what's a prequel, what comes before what, and stuff like that.
Isn't there also books involved, too?
There are books, but none of the books are canon.
Really? None of the books are canon?
Okay, so there's one series of books that's just a trilogy of novels that all have one cohesive story, and that's all its own universe. Like, that's its own separate story. It's not connected to the games whatsoever. It has completely different characters, different settings. It's in Ohio. Utah. It's in Utah. Sorry, I get Ohio and Utah confused a lot. They both have nothing in them.
True. I've driven through Utah, and the only thing that was there was Salt Lake City, and even Salt Lake City had nothing in it.
Yeah. Did you know that, okay, so first fun fact, the majority of Five Nights at Freddy's takes place in Hurricane, Utah.
Hurricane, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real place named Hurricane.
Yeah.
Are they famous
and it's also
for
the
tornadoes?
Source of controversy because MatPat got his entire fan base to go and raid a small town that's similar to it. But anyway, we'll get into that later.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you were talking about the books. I'm like, isn't that what MatPat pulled a very loose dot connect from? And then people started calling somebody.
Yeah, he's like, this is a very obvious ARG, guys. And it's like, no, it's not, because it was from a book that got canceled. It was scrapped.
Yeah.
The only reason you get to read it is because Scott Cawthon likes money.
This is true.
Anyway, that point aside, so let's start at the very beginning.
A very good place to start.
The year is 2014. This is 8 years ago.
Okay, wow, recent-ish.
Yeah, the first game in the series is 8 years old this year. And in fact, in exactly a month, on August 8th, it will be 8 years old.
Shit.
Yeah. So, essentially, Five Nights at Freddy's came out August 8th, 2014. And the first couple weeks of the game being out were like pretty calm. Essentially, what happened was Scott made a game before this called Chipper and Sons Lumber Company, which
Oh,
you played as a beaver in a sort of side-scrolling thing, and you had a tree farm. And then as this beaver with a tree farm, you would harvest the wood, you would do tasks for people, you would like build robots so that they could harvest trees and stuff for you. So it essentially was sort of like an idle game in a sense as well. So you would constantly be gaining resources and stuff like that. So that you could do things faster, whatever.
like Cookie Clicker.
And it had this weird story where like Chipper and Sons, so you didn't play as Chipper, you played as Chipper's kid. And then Chipper was your dad, but then in the story, like the robots that you build throughout the game, like his dad ended up like not being his dad.
The
It ended up
fuck?
being like taken over and like replaced by one of the robots.
Wait, so one of the robots like did
One
one of the
one
robots
of the
like kill
robots
his
like
dad and replace him?
yeah. But
Jesus.
like the game doesn't like confirm that cuz it's like a kids game, but like definitely like your dad has been replaced by a robot. And there's like no clue where your dad actually is.
Oh,
Anyway,
lovely.
and so this was a mobile game that came out, and Scott was working on porting this game to PC. And he released a Steam page for it, to sort of like raise some awareness and stuff like that. And essentially, the mobile version came out first, and then he was porting that to PC. So he was like changing controls and adding like controller support and like mouse and keyboard support and stuff like that. And the Steam page came out, and a YouTube channel you might know called Jim Sterling
Oh, Jim Sterling, yes.
did a review of the Steam page, because that's something that Jim Sterling would do a lot. Was this like looking at just garbage trash that ended up on the Steam page, on the Steam store, and they looked at it and they went, "Oh, this looks like complete ass. Why does this look so horrifying for a kids game?" The art style was weird. Everything was constantly moving. It was like way too colorful in a way that like made everything kind of creepy. It
Yeah.
was definitely Uncanny Valley. And Jim Sterling said, "This looks like fucking like haunted like Chuck E. Cheese robots." And Scott Cawthon nearly gave up making video games as a whole because of Jim Sterling's video.
Jesus. And does Jim
And
Sterling
then,
know this?
oh yeah,
Like
he knows
the
all
impact?
this. Oh yeah, Jim Sterling is the sole reason why Five Nights at Freddy's exists.
Jesus, imagine having that weight on your shoulders.
Because Jim Sterling's review is what sort of like cascaded Scott down this rabbit hole of like, well, if people think that this is that scary, what if I tried to make something that actually was? And so he stuck with the like haunted animatronic idea and the Chuck E. Cheese idea and made Five Nights at Freddy's. And the development period, I think, was 8 months. And he released a demo, and he made a Kickstarter page for Five Nights at Freddy's, which I think he was trying to raise like 2,000 on his Kickstarter, and I think he got like $10 total. Like
Wow.
it was a failed Kickstarter.
Wow.
Complete failure. His Kickstarter failed. He went along with developing in his free time anyway. He worked at a Dollar Tree. Um, and he, in an interview, was talking about like his manager at the dollar store he worked at was literally like half his age, and that was like
Really?
such a degrading thing to him,
Oh my
to
God.
have
Can
to
you
be
imagine?
like bossed around at a minimum wage job by someone that is half his age.
That is oh man.
Fucked up,
That is kind
honestly.
of fucked up in a very weird way.
Other things that Scott has worked on, just for some clarification as to the background, some controversy that ends up happening like later on down the line. Scott Cawthon is a Christian man from Texas
Oh boy.
who, yeah, so you already know where some of the controversy part is going.
Yeah.
Um,
You
and
hear Christian man from Texas and you're like, ooh.
he used to make CG animated like Christian films in the same like comedy style as like VeggieTales and stuff like that. And he would 3D model, animate, voice act everything himself in all of these. And he worked with this small like online production company where he would like produce this stuff. He did a film adaptation of a popular Christian book called The Pilgrim's Progress, which is a fucking incredible book. Even if you're not a Christian, it's just like a really actually good book. He did a video game adaptation of his film adaptation of the book,
All right.
which is a very interesting game. But definitely was like, okay, you can see like his progress in being a game developer, in being an animator, and all this, how important it was for him rising up eventually. Anyway, that's the backstory on Scott. He releases Five Nights at Freddy's after a failed Kickstarter, after 8 months of development. The first couple weeks, pretty much zero sales. He released the game on a platform called Desura.
Never heard of that before.
Desura, a couple years after FNAF originally came out, ended up going bankrupt and shutting down. Because of just how unknown and how unpopular it was. For context, Game Jolt was a free platform that you couldn't charge for video games on, which was significantly more popular than Desura, which was a platform sort of in the same vein as Itch,
Oh yeah.
but just like not as well managed. Anyway, he released it on Desura, and that was when a YouTuber, who we don't talk about anymore for various reasons, called Yami Mash, uploaded a video on Five Nights at Freddy's. Yami Mash was a friend of Markiplier's at the time.
Oh.
And
I thought it was Markiplier that was like the first one to make the big video about it.
see, Yami Mash wasn't big, but he was Mark's friend. And so if you watch Mark's very first FNAF video, I think he in there mentions like, "Oh, my friend Yami Mash recommended that I play this game." And so in his very first video, he mentions that Yami Mash was the first YouTuber besides Scott himself to make a video on FNAF, and Mark was the second, based on a
Ah.
recommendation. And then overnight success. Essentially, literally in that single night that Mark made that first video, Scott was able to quit his job at the Dollar Tree and was able to work on game development full time after a
Jesus.
single video.
Could you imagine that?
Yeah,
Going from working at a
that's
dollar store?
that's insane.
Especially a Dollar Tree.
So anyway, there is the background of how FNAF as a franchise came to be, which is insane.
Wow.
So yeah, I have a lot of respect for Scott in the way that he like kept pursuing this dream, even though like the sheer lack of success.
Mood.
And then he
Fucking
got
mood.
it. And then he got it. He succeeded.
Just imagine, like, just, like, accidentally making one of the most fucking popular video game franchises in, like, the modern era.
Not even just popular, but like influential. Like, this changed the game industry for the past 8 years.
How did this change the game industry?
Well,
I guess it was a huge step for like indie developers, or
it was a huge step for independent. It was a huge step for horror as a genre. It was a huge step for fandom media. It was a huge step for just like I don't even know. It's just it was something different that hadn't been done before. Like the first game stylistically is very similar to like DOS games from the 90s,
yeah,
but also it's fresh, right?
yeah.
And like even after FNAF came out, the first one, like there's a Star Fox game, an official Star Fox game that is based on the gameplay style of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Wow, Star Fox, that
It
that
was
doesn't make sense.
an official launch on the Wii U that released next to Star Fox Zero, a mainline game in the series. Star Fox Guard was a FNAF clone made by Nintendo.
That I don't know why that just doesn't make sense that would happen for some reason.
It's so funny though.
I didn't think that like it would have that much of an influence to the point where Nintendo would be like, "Oh, this is interesting." Yoink.
Exactly. Yeah. So, anyway, it has a lot of influence on the genre. It has a lot of influence on independent developers. It has a lot of influence in gaming as a whole. So, now, are you ready to dive into the wacky fucking world of the FNAF storyline?
Yes.
All right.
Let's fucking do it.
All right, so the year is 1983.
Oh, I thought it was 2014. Okay.
Well, that's the year the game launched. I'm talking about the story now.
Okay, well now we're going in, now we're there.
So I'm going to go over the games in release order. So the year is 1983. And Mike Schmidt is your name. You start your job at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And you are a night guard. You are working there from midnight till 6 a.m. every night, guarding the restaurant,
It's not even
making
full-time
sure
hours.
things don't go haywire. Yeah, no, you work 6 hours a shift.
That's part-time.
Yeah, but you also work 6 days a week.
So I mean, like
It
You're-
kind of adds up.
like 36 hours, that's like just a few hours short of what would be considered full-time. But, that's
Yeah.
neither here nor there.
This is also the early 80s.
So,
I don't know if that counted.
yeah, the 80s were a time.
So, you are a night guard at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Um, Essentially, you get these phone calls every night from someone we only refer to as Phone Guy. They are pre-recorded messages that he sends you at the beginning of every shift that basically just talk about like what you're doing, what the Freddy Fazbear's restaurants are for. And he says that the animatronics walk around at night on a free roam mode so that their servos and their motors and their gears don't lock up. And he gives you some advice on how to keep them out of your office, but doesn't necessarily explain why they should be dangerous or anything like that. But he does say, if they see you, they might think that you're an endoskeleton that isn't in a costume, so they might stuff you inside of a suit. Which is dangerous because all of the wires and gears and stuff like that in the suit would essentially just crush you to death.
Lovely.
So, that's not a thing you want to happen.
You're right.
And so you're working whatever. You have Freddy, you have Chica, you have Bonnie, you have Foxy. And they roam around, whatever. They have their own little thing they do. They supposedly, even though animatronics can't actually walk around like at real life restaurants because that's not a thing that animatronics are capable of. Like that is tech that would have been way too expensive for fucking Chuck E. Cheese to ever attempt.
Yeah, and like the fucking you'd have to have batteries, like fucking massive batteries in these animatronics in order for them to be able to free roam around a restaurant.
Well, and in the 80s, like their legs would probably run on like air pumps and stuff like that if they had to walk around.
You just hear this like hydraulic psh, psh,
and the thumping and stomping is so heavy.
So essentially, realism, thrown out the window immediately.
Realism thrown out the window. But that also alludes to the fact that maybe technology is a lot more advanced in this universe.
We'll go with that.
We'll go with that. So essentially, they can walk around, whatever. Not only can they walk around, but Foxy, who is smaller and lighter than all of the rest of them, he can run. Like, he can fucking book it.
Fucker can sprint.
He sprints. And so, essentially, like, their different mechanics are like, Bonnie and Chica will just roam around, whatever. If they end up in your hallway by your office door, you close the door. You check on them with the lights, whatever. Foxy's a little different. You have to look at his camera in order to make him not move as frequently. He doesn't like being looked at, so he'll hide more the more you look at him. And if you don't pay attention to him, then he books it the fuck down the hallway and will start slamming on your door. Horrifying.
Yes.
Freddy's a little different. He doesn't give a fuck what you do. He will just tear on through the fucking restaurant, and sometimes he can sneak through your door even if it's closed.
This makes sense. 100% makes sense.
We don't question it.
Yeah.
Freddy also goes inside the girls' washroom for no reason. So
we also don't question the fact that even though it's the 1980s, for some reason restaurants need to go on a battery fucking backup at nighttime because how dare they use power off the grid when there's nobody inside the restaurant?
Also, can I keep in mind their doors, these big fucking metal clunky ass giant doors, seal with magnets, right? They are magnetically sealed. That's why they take so much energy to keep closed, which is fine. But when you run out of power, the doors that come down when they close go back up.
That was going to be my next point. Like, why is it that, If I let go of this fucking water bottle I'm holding, it's gonna drop to the fucking ground because gravity. It's not gonna
Right.
go onto the goddamn ceiling.
It's very entertaining. Um,
That's always just been like my one nitpick with those doors. It's like, why the fuck do they slam open instead of slam shut?
exactly.
I mean, that's not very fail-safe, to be honest.
Yeah. So anyway, you have a camera system, you have all this stuff. It's pretty high tech for the 80s, which is again another reason why the technology is probably a lot more advanced. Oh, people are awake in the house now.
They
Sounds good.
I thought it was Mocha. I thought it was
No.
Mocha.
Mocha doesn't stomp down the stairs that heavily. Cool. So, essentially, you go through your 5 nights. The phone guy is giving you advice the whole time. That is a lot of sound. Oh, there's her collar.
Yep. Don't.
And basically, as the nights progress, the phone guy's getting a bit more like cautious about the things he's saying. He doesn't want to like give away too much information, but also he's like trying to let you know what's happening, stuff like that. And at one point, at I believe it's night 4, he talks about like, oh, I always wondered what was inside all the old heads, like the old animatronic heads that are in the storage room. And he's just like, you know, he sounds scared and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, well, I was wondering what was there, and now I see it, and I think they're coming for me. And then you hear like part of like a jump scare noise and crackling, and then the phone call ends.
Oh, so fucker dies.
Yeah. And then night 5, your phone call that you get is just a bunch of garbled noise, very much implying that he died. Now, we have no clue when he died, but
He did?
he did. Also, I'm sorry, did I say 1983? I meant 1993.
1990. Oh, okay, so we've been
That's
in the
a-
we've been in the
that's a-
90s this whole time instead of the
That
80s.
is a 10-year gap.
That
I'm
is
so
a
sorry.
significant gap.
Sorry, 83 is a different year for a different game.
Okay.
Yes, okay. I got my timeline all fucky wucky.
How could you do this?
But yes, so he's dead. Absolutely dead. And so you reach the end of your first week, and if you survive, you get your paycheck. And your paycheck, whatever, confirms that your name is Mike Schmidt, and that it's, you know, the 90s. The thing that I was saying incorrectly this whole time. And whatever. You go back for night 6. Night 6 is a bit of a different story. There's no phone call, as far as I remember. And it's just more difficult. It's just an extra shift, you know.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to the end of it, you actually get a pink slip.
A pink slip.
A pink slip is essentially when you get fired. And it's just like, you are fired, here's the reasons why. And the reasons why you get fired are for tampering with the animatronics, body odor, which is very important, and general unprofessionalism.
Interesting. Okay.
And the body odor is the most important part there. But the tampering with animatronics is essentially like you get fired because there's a custom night where you're able to change the AI levels or the difficulty of the animatronics, which is just a story way of being like, oh, you like are fucking around with things you're not supposed to, even though it's like a custom night that the game allows you to have. But canonically, you get fired for it.
Interesting.
Yeah. But, so, yeah, keep in mind the body odor part. Very important.
Okay.
I know it seems weird that that's the most important part, but we'll get there.
I have a feeling it might have something to do with like the fact that, dead bodies maybe.
Yeah, but
It's entirely possible.
but Mike Schmidt's body odor. Very important.
I'm curious to see where this goes. Okay.
Okay, so then, how long have we been recording?
Like half
An hour? Sounds good. Okay. So we got through the preamble and one game in half an hour. I'll try and speed it up. Okay, so FNAF 2.
Okay.
Now this game originally was teased as a sequel, when in reality it is a prequel.
That's one thing I remember.
Now this one takes place in 1987. And you play as a character named Jeremy Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald.
Yes.
All right.
And so this one is a prequel. It takes place like 6 years beforehand. And essentially, it is a larger restaurant from back when the franchise was a little more popular. It has lots of party rooms. It has lots of like stage space. It has an arcade. It has like a merry-go-round and all this stuff in it. Has a whole bunch of new characters. It has a whole bunch of the old characters that are stuck in storage. They only use them for parts. And the new characters, which are the toy-styled animatronics, are fitted with a built-in security system where if they see a customer or someone or a thief or anything like that doing something wrong, their security system that's built in can alert the authorities.
Okay.
So essentially, if they see like someone that's like stealing something, or they see someone like what's the word, wrecking stuff, I don't know,
Yeah.
then they can either call the cops or call the security guard, whatever.
Yeah.
Which is very nice. So
Which for the
again,
80s
further
was
proof
astonishing.
that yes, the technology is a lot more advanced. Because having that in the 80s is just sounds too good to be true. They had like a facial recognition system.
Damn.
So like they have like a database of every customer that enters the restaurant and can recognize them.
This explains what I know about Security Breach.
Yeah. But also keep in mind Security Breach is set in the future.
Yeah, but still, like,
Yeah.
customer database kind of stuff. Kind of,
Yeah.
it's like a theme, you know?
It's a theme.
One of those
So yeah,
themes.
they have like a facial recognition system. They can like monitor if someone is on their blacklist that isn't supposed to be in the restaurant. They can like look at them, see who they are,
And
and
fucking
alert
kill 'em.
the authorities. They are also connected to like police watch lists. So
Jesus.
if they see people that are like predators or something like that, they can pinpoint them in the crowd and alert the police
This
that they
is
are.
very astonishing for the 80s.
I know, right?
Like, I mean, like, the only thing that was astonishing about the 80s in real life is, like, maybe, like, Pop Tarts.
Yes.
Which for the 80s was astonishing.
Was astonishing. So yeah, they like this like facial recognition system is like super fucking cool. They don't expand on it too much in the actual game because you're playing at night,
Yeah.
right? You're playing as the security guard at night. There's one person in the restaurant as a whole. So that's not really, you know, their security system that they have isn't really necessary at that point in time.
But is it active still?
I probably, but considering you're an employee, chances are them calling the security guard, which is you, wouldn't have too much of an impact on anything. Just
This
like,
is true.
yeah. And I mean the cops do get called towards the end of the game to investigate something. Mocha, why are you playing the guitar? What? Did you hear that?
I did hear that, yeah.
Incredible.
Mocha, we're talking
'cause
about
her,
FNAF
her toy
lore.
is on top of the mandolin. She's so talented. Anyway, yes. So, essentially, you play as Jeremy Fitzgerald, who is a new hire. Again, Phone Guy is there. This is a prequel set 6 years earlier. Phone Guy's alive during this time. Makes sense. So you get what? What do you want?
Mocha,
You're
we're
a dog.
busy recording. Go fuck off.
You're a dog. Good sit. And so you have this new job. You are security guard. You get these pre-recorded messages from Phone Guy where he's talking about stuff that is currently happening, but also it's not currently happening because they're pre-recorded messages. And he basically is just like, welcome to the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where, you know, we have all of these new security systems, and we felt like with these, with the new AI and facial recognition and stuff like that that's in the robots, we felt like our security officers did not need to have doors on the offices and stuff like that. Like, the place should be secure enough to the point where we should be paying our animatronics to protect you.
Oh,
Like, kind of
interesting.
situation.
That's why
Like,
the doors are gone.
yeah. So in theory, like, if their systems worked the way that they intended, like, they shouldn't have ever even needed a security guard. He was just there for, you know, for safety's sake, just in case. And so whatever, you go blah 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 through the nights. And essentially by the end of the week, you find out that there is an investigation that's going on and that the place might have to close for a couple weeks because you don't want a bunch of police around while there's a bunch of children. Somebody found something that they shouldn't have found. And so the restaurant's going to close for a couple weeks. At the end of the week, you started your week on Monday or whatever. You work until Friday. And then they're like, hey, one of our morning guys won't be able to make it in on Saturday, which is the last day before we close for the couple weeks for the investigation. Could you potentially cover the morning shift on the Saturday, and then we'll get someone else to cover your security shift that night? And so you play as a different character on night 6 than you do for the first 5 nights.
Okay.
And the character you play on Saturday is named Fritz Smith. So
Fritz Smith. These are very interesting choices for names.
you have Mike Schmidt, Jeremy Fitzgerald, and Fritz Smith. Those are the only names in the entire franchise so far.
They sound like they all live in the suburbs.
And so on the Saturday, you find out that something happened during the day, because obviously you only work at night, and now you're playing as a whole different person. You find out something happened during the day. It's their last day before they're closing for a couple weeks. And essentially, what happened is that Jeremy, during the day, saw that one of the animatronics was, like, getting too close to a kid, and he was worried about it, having worked with them for the past week at night, noticing how aggressive they were. And essentially, while trying to protect this kid, he ended up looking like a threat to the security system.
Oh.
And the bite of 87 happened.
Was that the bite of 87?
Was that the bite of 87? So essentially, Jeremy was the bite victim.
I thought it was a kid that was the bite victim.
See, this is... You're correct, but you're wrong.
I'm confused. Go on.
Okay, so then this is the end of the main story of FNAF 2. Then you have the mini games, which are random events that happen if you die throughout the nights. Then there's a random chance that you will do a random video game, like Atari style mini game thing, which gives you a bit of a bit of knowledge as to the backstory of what's happening. So there are some where you play as this character called the Puppet, or the Marionette, who is this, like, puppet on strings kind of thing that has these tracks that move around the restaurant. And he lives at the prize corner of the restaurant. Also, sorry, side note, the restaurant in FNAF 2 does not have a kitchen.
Where the fuck do they cook the food?
I don't know. I'm confused about it. Everyone's confused about it.
Seems like a huge oversight on their
I think
part.
Scott just forgot to model a kitchen.
So maybe there's one in the restaurant, we just don't know where the fuck it is, I guess?
Or it's in a separate building, which does happen.
I mean, you know what? That's the easiest way to cop out when you forget to model a fucking kitchen.
It's funny, but it's... Anyway. That point aside... that also brings up the fact maybe they recycled their pizza, which is disgusting.
Also, when does Five Nights in Heaven take place in this timeline?
Oh, shut the fuck up. Okay, so
I'm never gonna let
the
you
mini
forget
games.
that.
There's a puppet. He goes around tracks on his strings where he can, like, go around the restaurant. He lives at the prize corner inside a big present. It's like a blue box with a red bow on it. It's like this big old fucking thing. And essentially, he brings gifts out to tables when kids have their birthdays.
Okay.
And so he, like, flies along through the restaurant on these tracks and will just, like, bring boxes of gifts to kids. Which is, like, super nice. His design is kind of weird. His mask is 3D modeled in such a way where, looking at him straight on, he has kind of like a happy look to him. But if you tilt his head downwards slightly towards the camera, the angle it's at makes it look like his eye shape is, like, angry, which is, like, super clever 3D modeling on Scott's part.
Very.
I wonder if I could find a picture of him. Uh, but yeah, he's super cool. Super neat. Copy image. Where's the chat? I can't find it. Mocha, get off the counter. That's what he looks like.
I remember that. I remember seeing that a while back.
Yeah. And then, yeah, if you tilt his head down, he has, like, these angry eyebrow things. I don't know how to describe it. But he's cool. But essentially, this backstory that happens in these minigames alludes to the fact that when the children went missing, which is a constant theme in this, is that at every location, at least 5 kids go missing. Which is like, in the first game, there's this poster or whatever that is just like, there's missing children, nobody knows what happened to them, rumors are that their spirits are possessing the animatronics, blah blah blah. That's all the first game says about it. In the second game, it's like the investigation that the police are doing is about some missing kids, and that's why the place has to shut down for a couple weeks for the investigation. And then the minigame, you play as the puppet, who, you know, gives gifts to children on their birthday. So you bring presents around to children, and they're all happy and like, woo, high score. And then on one of these, there is like, instead of normal children, their bodies are pale and they're slumped over. And, you know, they're like dead. And
that sounds pretty dead, yeah.
The puppet does the only thing he knows how to do, which is give them gifts. And so, essentially, the gift that he gives them is putting their spirits inside of the robots so that they can live again. Because they died much too early. And the reason why the puppet can do this is also a huge thing, because the puppet was the first kid that got killed. And this is shown by another mini game where essentially there's a bunch of kids having fun inside of the restaurant. They're having a party, they're having a good time, and there's this one kid that's locked outside. And he can't get in. And all of his friends are having a good time inside, and he's like crying and he's scared. And during this minigame, you're playing as Freddy inside the restaurant, just passing out cake to these kids whenever they're hungry and like having a good time. But you can see outside of the restaurant this one child just crying and whatever. And this car pulls up, and a purple man gets out of the car.
Oh my god, purple guy.
And all you see is him kill the kid and then drive away.
Jesus, alright.
Yep. And that was the first kid who died at the franchise. And essentially, that kid goes on to become the puppet. Anyway, so that is our first introduction to the purple guy. There's also another mini game where you play as Foxy. You come out of Pirate's Cove, which is behind a curtain or whatever, and it's like, go Foxy, go! And you like run down the hallway towards a room with a bunch of kids, and they're all like, yay, it's Foxy! And then you do this like a couple of different times, and it's like, yay, it's Foxy! And then one of the times you run out of Pirates Cove, and Purple Guy is standing there smiling because Foxy is his favorite animatronic. And he's just like, yay, go Foxy! And then you run to the room where all the kids are, and it's a bunch of dead bodies.
Oh.
And it's like, oh, shit. There's no one here.
There's your problem.
Yeah. And so that's a whole cool thing. Love to see it.
Ugh.
And so this introduces the purple guy. This introduces he's the person killing all these children. This introduces why all the spirits are in these robots in the first place. This introduces a whole lot of stuff. And at one point, Phone Guy mentions that like Foxy is his favorite animatronic, which the entire fandom was like, oh, this is proof that the Purple Guy and Phone Guy are the same person, which is not true, actually.
It just seems like a very loose dot connect. Like there's a certain amount of animatronics that were introduced at that point,
Yeah.
and there are a select amount of characters. So it's possible that any of these select amount of characters could have had a possible favorite out of the ones that you know about.
But also, at this point, there was only 4 actual characters introduced in the franchise, and 2 of them both have Foxy being their favorite character. So people were just like, it has to be the same. Yes. So, then, we're going to move on to the third game.
When does the third game happen?
So, the third game came out in 2015 and is set 30 years after FNAF 1, which took place in 93. Meaning that 2023 is when FNAF 3 takes place.
Oh shit, that's next year. Oh fuck.
Oh shit, that's next... FNAF will be real in 1 year.
Well, technically it already has been. And will be. Look out for the new dining concept coming soon.
I'm so excited for it, honestly.
I'll try it. I don't expect it to be good.
I don't either, but I also don't expect Chuck E. Cheese to be good whenever I eat its pizza. Like,
You eat Chuck E. Cheese pizza?
I've had it once.
I don't even know if I've I know I've probably been to a Chuck E. Cheese, but I could not tell you when, and neither could my parents, I think.
That is fair and valid.
We should go.
We should go. I've wanted to go for years. I remember Sam had a job at a Chuck E. Cheese for like 2 days, and on his first day working there, he just sent me a picture of Chucky, and it was just like, look at this. He's so scary.
I could. Oh man, though I wonder if you're like actually like. I've heard from some people it's like, oh, you can't go to Chuck E. Cheese unless you have a kid or some shit.
That's also what I've heard, which is why I just haven't tried.
I'm like curious to know.
Yeah. Anyway. So Five Nights at Freddy's 3 takes place 30 years after the first game. And you work as essentially a cosplayer working at a horror attraction. So do you know what like Screamfest is?
Isn't that like some sort of like horror attraction or something that happens in like Calgary? I don't know.
Yeah, it's essentially like it's just like a convention based around horror as a franchise, and essentially they have like a bunch of like really cool haunted houses that you can like tour through.
Yeah.
And they're all like based around different concepts. So in FNAF 3, you are working as a security guard. You're essentially just dressed up as a security guard to kind of sell the idea of this haunted house.
Okay.
You're not an actual security guard. But you're working there as a security guard in quotations. And It's called Fazbear Frights. It's just a haunted house based on the old rumors about Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And
Also,
so,
also, quick aside. I did just read the rules on Chuck E. Cheese website. They welcome anyone of any age, it says in the frequently asked questions.
okay.
So who wants to go to Chuck E. Cheese?
I want to go to Chuck E. Cheese.
Should we
I
go
really
to Chuck
do.
E. Cheese? Should we?
I really do want to.
I kind of want to, weirdly enough.
We should do this.
We should go to a Chuck E. Cheese.
Um,
Today, right?
no, not today. Okay, yes. So essentially you work at this haunted house. And the person who's putting this together is super here for it. He's super into it. Like collecting old Freddy Fazbear's merchandise and stuff like that. And old animatronics from closed down restaurants and stuff like that. That's his vibe. He just collects all of this shit. He puts it all in this haunted house. He has authentic everything from the era, including the security system, including the phones, including the stupid fucking desk fan. Everything that, would make a person be like, oh, this is stuff from these restaurants I used to go to as a kid, So, that being said, you get a phone call on the first night from this guy who we refer to as Phone Dude. Because he is not Phone Guy.
We have Phone Guy and Phone Dude. We're really expanding the roster here.
Well, because, Phone Dude talks like this the whole fucking time.
Oh, the entire time?
And also is still voiced by Scott Cawthon. And so his way of being I'm no longer Phone Guy, so I'll do a whole different voice. He just does a surfer inflection the whole time, which is fucking awesome.
Bro, dude,
bruh,
legit, welcome to Fazbear Frights.
And so the first night of FNAF 3, there is no enemy. It's just a haunted house attraction where you are just there watching over everything, making sure nobody breaks in and steals stuff, because all this stuff is from the 80s. It's very expensive. It's all merchandise from this myth that happened and stuff like that, right? And so essentially, even though you are just playing as the night guard for the sake of this act that you're going to be putting together for this Halloween event, basically you have to be the security guard anyway. And just watch over it. And the character that you play as in this game, is, as far as I remember, in game he is unnamed. But later on we'll find out who he is. So, the first night you have this long phone call with Phone Dude. He's just hey, this is what's going on here. I haven't managed to secure any actual, animatronics or anything, but I have all this really cool merchandise. And just, look at this place. It's so cool. Also, it's really funny because the layout of this place is, have you ever been in one of those haunted houses?
No, I'm very scared very easily, so I avoid them at all costs.
Okay, that's fair. So essentially, to explain it, is it's all of these haunted houses have a linear path through them that you can walk, and essentially it's just a little maze that only goes one direction. Sorry, about bapping the microphone there. And so, like, you have your start, you have your exit at the other end. And that's what you got. So essentially, your security office is at the end of it. And there's all these paths, but there's also vents that lead everywhere as well. And stuff like that. Whatever. The place, since it's full of all of this, like, super old junk, there's, like, problems with breathing sometimes. Like, you can, for some reason, your character can, like, start losing oxygen, so you have to, like, reset the ventilation in the place,
That
because you're
seems
just
like
like,
a huge oversight.
yeah, so you're just, like, stuck in this place with all of this old shit, probably a bunch of, like, asbestos and shit like that in the air, that you're just breathing in constantly, and this place has a broken fucking ventilation system. Like,
Bruh, that's...
and you're gonna have customers walking through there on a day-to-day basis?
Seems
Like,
like it
that's...
should not be allowed.
It's a little fucked up. But also, this guy is just a fan of all these myths and stuff like that. That's why he's doing this. So you can't expect him to be too professional. And so then he's just talking about how excited he is for this event. So glad that you picked up the role to be there. And that's the first night. There's zero threat. You're just looking around this place, looking at all the stuff there is to see. And then the next night, you come in and you get your phone call. And he says, bro, like, we found one. A real one.
I remember that line.
And then he's like, he's in there somewhere. I'm sure you'll see him. Or whatever. And so they found an animatronic. And they put it in this location with you. While you can't breathe from all the asbestos. And all this shit. So, when you can't breathe, you don't have as much oxygen. And when you don't have as much oxygen, you're having hallucinations. And because you're actually seeing things that are actually moving, you never know if it's a hallucination now. And so they have these things called phantom animatronics, which are not real. But they are like things that you see that don't actually exist, but they scare you. And when you're scared, other things go wrong. Like your security system can go out, your ventilation can go out, your other stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
But the animatronic that's real, that he brought into this location, is called Springtrap. And Springtrap, when you look at him, he has flesh.
Gross.
He has organs visible through his suit. There is a living person, dead living person, if that makes any sense.
That, in a way it does, but also, what the fuck?
And he is inside of this suit. And essentially, this suit that he's in is a Golden Bonnie suit. Back at the very, very beginning of the franchise having been opened, they only had two suits, which was Freddy and Bonnie. They got more as time went on. And so, he's roaming around. Apparently, they found him behind, like, a sealed wall in one of the other restaurants, and he had just been there rotting for years. And is somehow still alive. And so, essentially, you're just surviving against him this whole time. He's the only actual threat in the entire place. But again, you have, like, these hallucinations, and you have these oxygen issues, and, like, the air is toxic. and shit like that. So you do have other things to worry about as well, but he's the only thing that can kill you.
Yeah.
And so this game again has mini games in it. And these mini games, you are walking around as different animatronics. You are walking around the pizzeria from FNAF 1. And different things happen. You find different stuff. And one consistent thing is that you are being lured by something to go to this back room that you are not allowed to go into. And essentially, during the phone calls, it mentions that every single Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria has a safe room. And a safe room is not visible to any robots. Their system will not allow them to enter those rooms, and those rooms are to always remain sealed. And what's hidden in these rooms can vary. It could just be like an extra storage room. It could be the parts and service room. It could be anything. But more often than not, what's in that room is where Purple Guy will hide his victims. And that is another reason why you do not want the robots to go in there, because their security systems, they will see the dead children, they will see Purple Guy, they will be like, oh, he is a threat, and then his entire gig is over. And so they can't go into these rooms. So this thing guides you towards these rooms, and you can't go in. So you're like, okay, well, I'll explore elsewhere. And the moment you try and walk away from that room, Purple Guy comes out of the room and will dismantle the animatronic. And so every night that you have these mini games, you play as a different animatronic, Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, whatever. You go to this room, and you cannot enter it, and then he dismantles you. And yeah. Another thing to mention is that this is after the events of FNAF 1. The place in FNAF 1 is already decrepit as all shit.
Yeah.
But even though it's like decrepit and falling apart, it's not as bad as it is when it's shown in FNAF 3. There's cracks in the ceiling. The place has flooding issues. Nobody can go in it. The entire place is boarded up. Like, the windows and doors are all boarded up. It's literally just the animatronics are in there roaming around freely forever. And they cannot escape. No one can come in. No one can go out. The only person that is in these places is the Purple Guy, who is then dismantling the animatronics, because he believes that the reason why the animatronics are so aggressive is because they're constantly looking for him. And so he believes that if he dismantles them all at the old locations, then he will no longer be seen as a threat by them anymore, and they'll stop hunting him. What he doesn't realize is that the spirits of every kid that he killed are the actual reason why they're hunting him.
Yeah.
And by dismantling them, he then takes their spirits out of their bodies, and the children are able to roam around just as their spirits. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so, in typical Five Nights fashion, you have him dismantling one animatronic a night, but there's only 4 animatronics, right? And on the fifth night, you play as just a spirit. This whole time there has been a fifth animatronic, Golden Freddy, who is not seen by public, and also is like a random chance jump scare in the first couple games, where he just appears in your office, is an empty suit that just has a spirit in it, but has no endoskeleton, so it can't move around. But it seems to just phase through walls and appear where it likes to, and stuff like that. And so this spirit that you play in the fifth night, wandering around, is the spirit from that suit. And Golden Freddy is its separate thing. Golden Bonnie is the suit that Purple Guy uses to kill kids, right? So, you can see there. So, this spirit goes to the back room where he is. The other spirits are already there waiting for him because he dismantled all their bodies. And Golden Freddy, having been seen as this very aggressive force the whole time so far, is now taking control and being like, okay, well, you took our bodies away, now you can't touch us. And then pursues him. And the spirits are able to go into the back rooms, even though their bodies can't, because the robot systems won't let them. So essentially, he made them more dangerous by taking away their bodies, because when they were in the bodies, they weren't able to go into his safe room. But now that they're just spirits, they can go wherever they want. And so all 5 of these spirits are in the back room. He's there as well. He gets scared, not having realized that it's the ghosts the whole time that were trying to attack him. And so he thinks the only way that I'll be able to be safe is if I get back in my old suit. The old suits, the golden suits, are what we refer to as spring-locked. They have these systems where essentially they don't have a proper endoskeleton. What happens is their internal system can be pushed to the sides of the suit so that a person can wear it as a costume, and then whenever a person's not wearing it as a costume, they can just set the suit back to normal, and the robot system will then work again.
Okay.
The motors in it and everything, though, when they get loose or when they get wet or stuff like that, they have the chance of snapping shut, which is called a spring lock failure. And
yeah, if something fails, that'd probably be,
essentially, it's like all the robotic systems that you then pushed to the side so you could fit a person into the suit all come snapping in. And it's pretty much instantly fatal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, this dumb motherfucker then decides to get into this suit that has been sitting in that back room for years, in a place where there's leaks, there is water dripping from the ceiling, it's old, it's decrepit, there's a bunch of moisture, there's a bunch of just everything going wrong that possibly should, and in the moment, he is scared, and he decides to get into this suit.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks he's all-powerful. He thinks that there's nothing the spirits can do to me while I'm in here. This has to protect me. And then the spring locks fail. And he's in a sealed room. So, he gets spring locked. This is the first moment in the entire series where there is actively blood in the game.
Oh wow.
There's like this crunch noise that you hear, and then there is an explosion of blood, and then he's like shaking, sitting on the ground, blood pools underneath him, his breathing slows down, and then roll credits.
Jesus. What a
Yeah.
way to end that.
Yeah. So essentially, that is what they found and brought to the horror attraction 30 years later.
They brought dead purple guy to the horror attraction.
Yes. So the thing that you are fighting against the entire time in FNAF 3 is Purple Guy himself. And nobody realized that when bringing him to this place.
Wow.
So, with all of this knowledge, at the end of Night 6, your character, who is still unnamed up to this point, goes and burns down the horror attraction before it can open to customers.
As you probably should, to be honest.
Yeah. And so the game ends with a newspaper clip out that just says, like, the Fazbear Frights horror attraction burned down. And they are saying that it's like faulty wiring, but they're going to run an investigation into whether or not it was on purpose.
Yes, totally not on purpose.
Yeah.
Not at all. Not the fact that there's a fucking, like, you know, slightly dead but undead fucking lunatic inside.
Hell yeah.
You know?
Alright, so now we're getting to the fun part. Okay, so we're an hour and 20 minutes into this almost. And I have gone over 3 games.
Yes.
Okay. FNAF 4 is a little easier to explain. To me, at least, personally. So, FNAF 4 is interesting. You play as a child. The game is set in the bedroom of your house.
Why? Why? Why did we go from a restaurant to a house all of a sudden?
So essentially, there is, it's your nightmares. And so the animatronics that you see in your house are not necessarily real. But they are, but they aren't. But they are, but they aren't.
But aren't they?
FNAF 3 was supposed to be the last game in the series. Now, this is funny because the reason why FNAF 4 exists is because fans were upset that Springtrap's jump scare was so underwhelming.
Really?
And so Scott was like, okay, well, I'll just make another game so I can make scarier jump scares. That was the whole premise for his development of FNAF 4.
Wow.
And also to answer some unanswered questions. And so he makes these horrifying nightmare animatronics that are just fucking scary as shit. He calls this game Five Nights at Freddy's 4: The Final Chapter. That was the title of the game.
Really?
Pre-launch. He was like, okay, this one is the last one. The final game. There is nothing after this. And even if you buy the games on console, you can get the physical console versions of the first 4 games is called Five Nights at Freddy's: The Core Collection. And it is just the first 4 games. So if you wanted to play just the first 4 games as their own thing, completely separate from everything else, that is a whole series. That is a full story. So,
Weird. All right.
you're playing as this child. It's your nightmares. Why are you so scared of these animatronics? Why do you dream about them every single night? Why are they so scary to you that it's like literally just your nightmares every night, you know? And so you still have to survive from midnight to 6 a.m. because that's your sleeping time. For some reason, this kid only sleeps 6 hours a night. Relatable.
Or maybe 6 hours of the night is reserved specifically for nightmares, and then the other 2 you can sleep peacefully.
Yeah, there you go.
You get 8 hours of sleep, but you have to be awake for 6 of them. In a way.
And random chance, sometimes when you turn around, also this game's partially free roam. You are able to move from your bed to your doors to your closet and to turn around and look at your bed. So it's not entirely free roam. You're still set within limited areas, but you're able to roam around, which is cool. Anyway, so you are in your bedroom, whatever, random chance that things will spawn next to your bed on your night table. These things are an IV drip bag, a bottle of pills, or flowers. Things you would typically see in a hospital setting.
Is the kid dead or dying? That's what I'm getting here, is that the kid is either already dead or is dying.
So, FNAF 4, you are technically playing as 2 different kids at the same time.
How?
The gameplay loop in FNAF 4 is seen as 2 separate things. So the main one is you're playing as a dead kid, and this is their waking nightmares. And that is explained by the cutscenes that happen at the beginning and end of every night. It is a playable NES style thing from like a top-down perspective where you are playing as this crying child and you're in your bedroom and your brother constantly pops out of random things to scare you. And he is wearing a Foxy mask and he's just
An asshole.
He's an asshole. He's just a dick. Your biggest bully in your life when you are this influenced young kid is your own brother,
Of course.
who is years older than you. He's like, I'm gonna say like mid to late teens when this is happening. And you are like probably anywhere from like 8 to 10 years old. And so he's constantly appearing out of things in a Foxy mask, scaring you. To the point where your one friend that you have is this stuffed bear, this teddy bear.
Yeah.
And you are scared of everything to the point where this teddy bear talks to you and has a voice.
Oh, shit.
And so essentially it's like, I will always be your friend. I'm always here for you. It gives you like advice on what to do. It tells you like,
Should I start a 401k? Yes, friend, you should start a 401k. Should I invest in crypto? No.
please don't. It is a very volatile. Anyway,
It has no actual worth.
neither do most things.
Yeah, neither do I.
So essentially you just hear this voice coming out of it. Your teddy bear has eyes. It looks at you. It will like watch you walking down the hallway and shit like that. You also have a sister. but you never see her. You never see your sister. And there is a reason for that.
Yeah, she's in Germany right now.
Shut the fuck up.
I miss her.
So, whatever. You're going through this. Your brother scares you a few times. You can watch TV in your house, which the TV confirms what year this all takes place, which is 1983, the year I mentioned earlier.
Okay, so we're back.
Now we're in 1983.
Okay, so we're in the timeline. We're in the time of the second game, right now. No, the
second game is 87.
So we're before.
First game's 93.
First game's 93. Second is
87.
87, and
third game is 2023.
And then this one is.
This one's 83.
So this is before the second game.
Yeah, this is the earliest that we have gone so far.
Weird, but okay. Keep going.
Yes. I also believe that this is the earliest we have ever gone in the franchise. I don't think we've ever gone before 83.
Makes sense.
And so this takes place in 1983. Your brother's scaring you all the time. You're getting bullied. Kids outside don't pay much attention to you. You can talk to random neighborhood kids that all just like are also like fans of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It's like this big multi-million-dollar franchise at this point in time. And it's like it's this huge deal. Every kid loves going to Freddy's. You know, there's like action figures and merchandise that kids are playing with on the playground and whatever. It essentially cements the fact that Freddy Fazbear's is like a big franchise. Like it's like, yeah, it's like McDonald's levels of popular, but with like the merchandise sales of Disney. You know?
Yeah.
And this is also proven by the fact that like the show that you watch on TV is a Fredbear and Friends show. They have their own TV shows. They have their own everything. It's a very popular franchise. And so you go to the restaurant, and the scariest thing to you is Freddy, who is this giant golden bear that just like scares you. I couldn't exactly pinpoint why. Freddy's is your favorite place to be, but you're scared to death of Freddy.
Yeah, that doesn't quite make sense. I'm very confused.
There's also one point where walking past one of the back rooms of the restaurant, you see somebody putting on the Bonnie suit. And so, to a child, it's like, oh god, someone's being stuffed inside that suit. Even though it's just it's an employee wearing it, and he's about to go talk to some kids.
Yeah.
And so you're scared of these things because you see all this behind the scenes stuff. And essentially, you get to this one point where your brother, who's been bullying you this whole time, who for some reason has access to all of the back rooms at Freddy's, locks you inside the back room with all of these animatronic parts, with all of the like the heads and the endoskeletons and stuff like this, and locks you in there overnight, and then comes and gets you the next day, kind of
Bruh,
thing.
this brother's a dick.
Yeah.
Like fuck, what the hell?
Oh, it gets worse.
Oh, good. Oh, great. Oh, golly gee willikers.
So then, it's your birthday.
Oh, good.
And you
Just
go
what
to
I
Freddy's. And at your birthday party at Freddy's, your brother and all of his friends are there. all wearing different masks. And they're like, hey, it's your birthday. Aw, you want to go see Freddy up on stage? We'll make sure he gives you a big ol' kiss. And essentially, your brother and his group of friends all pick you up and carry you over to the stage, where also this is back in time, 83. This is when the golden animatronics were used, which, as we clarified, are the spring lock suits, right? And you know what happens when there's a spring lock failure. So they carry you over to the stage where the animatronics are performing on the stage, singing their songs and all this stuff. And they're like, oh, we'll make sure Freddy gives you a big ol' kiss. And they lift you up into his mouth. And of course, you're crying. There's a lot of moisture.
Oh, good.
Your tears drip down into his mouth. And... was that the bite of 87? That's that moment.
Thought it was the bite of 83.
See, Mark didn't know that. But this does take place in 83. The bite of 87 was Jeremy. Yeah. So that's that. And he dies.
What? Really?
So essentially, your brother just killed you. In the middle of a restaurant, surrounded by all of his friends, because he thought it would be funny.
Haha, death. Funny death, haha.
He didn't expect to kill you. He was just trying to be mean.
Well, he succeeded.
When will you learn that your actions have consequences? So, then your nightmares make a lot more sense, don't they? Your brother and his friends all wearing these masks make you horrified of these characters. And then, in the later nights, you are against Fredbear, who is the Golden Freddy, who in your nightmares has this giant mouth and very sharp teeth. And that's the final boss of FNAF 4. Essentially, the entire gameplay loop of the game changes once you get to the later nights, where the rest of the animatronics disappear, and the final night is just you against Golden Freddy.
Oh boy.
And he's entirely different. He plays differently. He has different rules. You have to essentially relearn how to play the entire game in order to fight against him. And so it's like a boss battle. And when you beat the game, you are essentially sitting in a black room with a single spotlight on you, and all of your plushies that you have at home are sitting next to you, and your Golden Freddy plushie that talks to you is like, I am still your friend. Do you believe that? I'll put you back together.
Bro, I would just straight up be like, the fuck? No.
And so even though you're dead, you still get to live.
Huh?
Because children's spirits.
It's these goddamn the spirit stuff, man.
Yep. So, that is FNAF 4. It is fucked up. It is so just ridiculously fucked up.
A little bit, yeah.
Just imagine, like
just imagine, just like somebody just fucking, just like hanging out in your room, just scaring you fucking periodically, like, oh, let's go to this restaurant with the thing that I've been the
On your
scare
birthday, too,
on
no less.
and just being like, "Hey, I know you're scared and like crying profusely. Want to take a look inside this giant mechanical bear?"
Snap.
Like, fucking dead, gone.
What a dick. And so, this is FNAF 4. That is FNAF 4.
That is FNAF 4.
So, after FNAF 4 came out, Scott was like, this is the final game in the franchise. That's it. No more.
He said that a lot of times.
And then Scott was like, since this is the final game in the franchise, I want to do a big send-off. So I'm working on a spin-off called FNAF World. FNAF World is an RPG. And it's like an arcade game situation. You have all of the Freddy's characters. You build an RPG party. You go around this world. You do boss battles. It's turn-based, like RPG fighting system.
That's such a weird like route for this to take. It's like going from these really fucked up stories about kids fucking dying, and then it's like, oh yeah, turn-based RPG.
Yep. Now, FNAF World is personally one of my favorite games in the series, but I also love RPGs. I love Scott's crazy, wacky game design. And FNAF World is no different. But FNAF World, even though he said, this motherfucker said that FNAF 4 was the last game in the series. But FNAF World led as a teaser to the next game. There was a part in FNAF World where you could go into this one house. You can't enter any houses in the game except for one. And this one house that you can go into has just like a grayscale room with a single desk in it, and this man sitting at this desk who's just like it's all my fault. I shouldn't have let this happen. She's here. She can hear me. Don't let her escape. And then everything goes to black, and these eyes appear in the corner of the room, and this female voice starts talking. And when the lights go on, the guy who is sitting at the desk is dead. And this pool of blood, goes across the desk and, drips off the table onto the floor kind of situation. He's fucking dead.
Yeah, that might indicate some sort of death situation happening there.
Yeah. And so, this man, who's sitting at the desk, is someone we are going to call Henry.
Henry.
Enter Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location. So Sister Location is the 5th game in the series. And is also the reason why Five Nights at Freddy's 4 can be seen as an entirely separate story from the one that we actually got in FNAF 4.
Yeah.
Baby, Circus Baby, is the main character of this one. She is a little girl clown, but she's also 8 feet tall. She's horrifying. And essentially you're working as a technician at this place, and your name is Mike. The Return of Mike.
The Return of Mike.
And so you are going through this place. Essentially, your job as a technician is to go through this location, which is a deep. You're gonna wanna clue in on this one. It is a deep underground storage facility for an animatronic delivery service that will deliver animatronics and birthday parties directly to your door. So essentially, you can just go on the phone, be like, hello, Freddy Fazbear's, I would like to order a animatronic birthday party for my kid's birthday, and then you can just set it up via an appointment.
Okay. This is not something that, like, a lot of the other stuff you've talked about, I've been like, oh yeah, okay, bits and pieces I've heard now and then. This is something I have not fucking heard of yet.
Yeah.
At all.
So yeah, they have this big warehouse with all these animatronics in it. They schedule them out to different like places for birthday parties. They have like different blocks. This whole scheduling system. And they just like, okay, which animatronic would you like? Oh, you would like Foxy for this time period on this day. Yeah, we have an open space. We'll send them over at that time. And then on the weekends, when they don't do this service or whatever, on the days that they're closed, that's when the maintenance guys come in. Or like in between at night. Is your light okay? Your camera's flickering. Maybe it's just your camera.
Probably
Anyway.
is, yeah.
Uh, so essentially, you work at night when like these things aren't being delivered out to houses, and you perform maintenance if they ever need them. So like, you know, they get brought back to the warehouse. It's like, okay, they've had a long day of doing birthday parties for all of these different things. We would like you to go in and, you know, clean this stuff. And they have this device called the scooper.
The scooper.
Which they claim is like any time that a robot at this facility is like corrupted or has a glitch or something like that, they go to the scooping room. And the scooper is like essentially this big machine that I don't know if have you seen the designs of the Sister Location characters?
I think I've seen like Circus Baby and stuff like that.
So you see how their face plates have like the openings in them?
Yeah.
So essentially, those openings that they have in their shells allow their entire casing to open so you can directly get at their endoskeletons.
Mm-hmm.
So, that being said, the scooper essentially takes advantage of that and is just a quick device that goes in, scoops all of their innards out, and then they will put a new endoskeleton in the next day. Just start over from scratch. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This also doubles because there are blueprints for these animatronics that show they have these giant cavities in their chests that are meant for holding ice cream and birthday cakes. They're also meant for storing children.
That's what I figured it was going to be. When, you know, you're talking about storing ice cream and birthday cakes in a series that, you know, a lot of dead kids in this series. Like, at least 2.
So essentially, this delivery service would bring animatronics to people's houses, and if the animatronic was ever with a kid alone in a room,
yoink.
Just fucking... And they would keep the kid in there. They were soundproof, and no one would be the wiser. They'd be like, oh, where'd so-and-so go? Oh, Freddy's going back to the facility now.
That's terrifying. You invite this fucking... Also, just like, why would you ever let an animatronic over to your house? Like,
Nobody knew.
Like just on principle, I would never want that to happen.
Yep.
Even like just regardless of knowing you wouldn't invite Charles Entertainment Cheese over to your house.
I don't know. Is he good at Smash?
I
Would
don't
he play some
know.
Mario Party with me? I'm pretty sure Chuck E. Cheese being in my house would be like,
I I would never let Charles Entertainment Cheese through my front door. And I will and continue to use his entire full name.
um,
Please. Charles was my father. Call me Entertainment.
so, this is their whole system for how they capture kids now. Is they have essentially a delivery service. We deliver you a birthday party, you deliver us your children. And nobody ever fucking questioned it.
How could nobody question that? It's just like, oh, this animatronic came over, and I haven't seen my kid in a long ass time.
But they wouldn't capture every kid because obviously, you know, they would only capture children that were alone. They still have this like monitoring system so they can always see their surroundings and stuff like that. They know if they're being watched.
So we've got tactical robots now.
Tactical kidnapping robots.
Lovely. Just
Yes.
what we needed.
Yes. So, cool. Good times. And this containment facility that is underground is also a research facility. And this is the part where FNAF 4 gets involved again. The house that you are in your dreams, in FNAF 4, the child's house that you play in, is directly connected via an elevator to this underground facility.
Why? Why?
Because, and this is where I might lose you a little bit,
You're already
the children that they would bring back to the facility from these birthday parties would then be put inside that house, in that bedroom, and experimented on.
So now we've got so we've gone from robots just like avenging fucking they're just avenging, you know what? That's what I'm
Yep.
calling it. And then purple guy fucking dies. And now we've got tactical robots that are working for some sort of entertainment business that actually just steals children and experiments on them in a house like Truman Show style. Like,
Yeah. Well, okay, look at it from this perspective. In the case of your mind being like, okay, I'm killing kids for a purpose, why would you keep going to these restaurants to only murder a couple kids at a time, have the restaurant then get shut down, when you could just create robots that can just bring the kids directly to you in your giant research facility? It's literally just takeout food at that point.
I don't. That's a bad sentence. That's a really bad.
That's
sentence.
a very bad sentence, but it's essentially like, oh yes, I can just order my experiments on Uber Eats, like,
bruh.
So, he would experiment on them, and in this whole process, you figure out that there's this thing called Remnant, which is only available in the souls of children. I'll get more into what Remnant is later. But this whole facility is run by Fazbear Entertainment, and all of the robots are made by Afton Robotics. And we find out that this was also around the time the first book came out. And the books revealed that William Afton is the name of the person that was kidnapping children this whole time.
Okay.
So Purple Guy is William Afton.
Okay.
We also find out in the books that William Afton and his friend Henry Emily were two guys
What kind of
that...
name is Henry Emily?
I don't know, having two first names is fucking weird.
That's
But
how you know it's fucked up.
William Afton and Henry Emily worked together to create the first restaurant in the 80s or 70s or something to that effect. We don't have an exact date. Called Fredbear's Family Diner, where they had two animatronics, which was Fredbear and Bonnie. They were golden, and their suits were suits that they would wear. And they would have their employees that would, like, take food out to tables and stuff like that. And the main attraction of this restaurant was the two character costumes that they would go to tables and, like, do birthday parties for kids. And it's just this small restaurant. Whatever. This small diner. That eventually then evolved to William, who had a knack for robotics, would then create the Springlock concept, where when they didn't want to be in the suits, they could just set them up as robots that would just play on the stage. But in order to go to tables and stuff like that, they would have to be in the suits themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole Springlock concept was developed for that reason. And all of the animatronics, from the start of the franchise through till the very end, were designed by Afton Robotics. And Henry Emily was the person who came up with the idea for the restaurant chain. He was the owner of everything, and William was the guy who made the robots. So they were very much like everything they did was together. They were two pieces of the same puzzle.
Gotcha.
So essentially, I still couldn't pinpoint the exact reason why he started killing kids.
Yeah, that part is not clear to me still. Because even when you first explained it, I was like, okay, so random guy, very purple, show up, he stabbed kid, go bye-bye.
Yeah.
And that's all.
That's all. So,
Like, I don't, like,
the reason why I think in my mind is because, like, this was becoming a popular franchise at one point, and then what
Somebody
happens
bought it
in
out
Sister
or stole it.
Location is the thing that spawned the entire series of events. So what happens in Sister Location is essentially you play as Mike. And Mike is doing maintenance on these characters, whatever. The mini games that happen in between are, again, very important. There's this one mini game where you play as Baby, who is at a birthday party delivering cake to the children. There's always more than one child on every single screen of this mini game. And you deliver them all cake. And then, after you deliver them all cake, you get ice cream. And then you find this one little girl who is all by herself. And you lure her towards you with the ice cream. And because you're all alone, snap. Now, this little girl is not just any girl. This is Elizabeth Afton. William's daughter.
Oh, right. One of the three kids.
Yes. This is also the reason why in FNAF 4 it's just the crying child and the brother, and the sister is nowhere to be seen. So the Freddy's Pizza that you are going to is the one where Purple Guy still works. This also means that the kid you're playing as is Purple Guy's son. The brother is also Purple Guy's son. So we now have William Afton, Elizabeth Afton, and the older brother, Michael Afton. The name Mike should ring a few bells.
Yeah, it does. Like, there's lines of dialogue, and then there's other things that I don't talk about.
Okay, I'm talking about in the context of FNAF.
Okay, gotcha. Not anything
So, the Mike that you played as in the first game, even though he's Mike Schmidt, he's actually Michael Afton. The Mike you play as in Sister Location is also Michael Afton. And the character you play as in FNAF 3 is also Michael Afton.
Hold on. How? Also, why do you have a different last name? Did they marry? Did they not die? What?
He's covering up his identity. Michael never died. We'll get to that. So in Sister Location, you find out all this stuff. You find out Elizabeth is gone. You find out that this house, which was you're playing as Michael, and then you find out that your house you lived in as a kid is now being used to do experiments on other children. Fucked up.
Yeah.
And so blah blah blah, all this stuff. Somewhere along the line, you also figure out that not only is the baby animatronic that is there possessed by your sister, but also Ballora, who is a ballerina, is possessed by your mom.
The mom died too?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
Motherfucker killed his own wife accidentally.
Just a little accident.
Little accident. Oops, accidentally killed my son, my daughter, and my wife.
These things happen.
These things happen. And so the only one alive at this point is Mike, who all this time has been trying to figure out where his father went, has been trying to figure out why he's been doing his experiments, has been trying to figure out how to stop his father, even though his dad died in 1993 and is still somehow alive 30 years later.
Weird.
Yeah. So, he goes there, he finds all these animatronics, he's, looking around, whatever, and he starts to trust Baby. Which is generally not a great idea. And ends up finding his way into the scooping room.
Scoop.
And the scooping room is meant to scoop out the endoskeletons from the animatronics, right? Baby lures him in there and says something to the effect of, we are unable to leave this place and, be our own people because we look like this. But if we looked like you, we could escape.
Mm-hmm.
All of the endoskeletons for these animatronics are made of essentially bundles of wires. So they are a lot more fluid in their movement. They are able to walk a lot more accurately. Their steps aren't as heavy, even though they're massive. Stuff like that. Their endoskeletons are specifically designed so that they are very easy to scoop out and then replace, right? And so what happens is Baby lures you into this room. All of the other animatronics have already been scooped out that night. Baby herself has been scooped out that night and is talking to you through, like, over the intercom. She lures you into this room and says, if we looked like you, we could roam around outside. So they use the scooper on you.
Oh, lovely.
So now, all these years later, after all of his investigation, after hunting down his father, after burning down the Fazbear Frights where his father was, Michael Afton dies. He
Takes
gets
a
scooped
while.
out. He managed to survive all this time, which, like, good for him. He gets scooped out, and all of these animatronics, all their wiggly wires and tendrils, go into his skin and wear him as a skin suit.
Ew.
Yeah.
That's gross, to say the least.
And that's that. They then leave the facility and start using his body to roam around.
Ew.
Fucked up, right?
Just a little bit.
Just
As
a little.
treat.
Little fucked up. So then this brings in a whole other thing. Because there is 2 purple guys. But it didn't matter that there was 2 up until this point. But they have a slight difference in the color of their purple. One is slightly more pink, one is a darker, more like royal purple color. The royal purple is William. The lighter pinker purple is Michael. This then explains, like, a whole bunch of other stuff that we see throughout this whole thing. Because there is then the custom night of Sister Location, where you then play as Michael on his day-to-day life, walking down the street, just, like, living his life, even though he's stuffed with animatronics. He's just walking along, and you reach the end of the street every time, and then it passes on to the next night. And then you play the next day, whatever, and he looks worse and worse as time goes on. Like, his hair is falling out, his skin goes gray, he doesn't walk as jauntily, because his muscles are deteriorating. Stuff like that. And as this progresses, he gets more and more purple. And essentially, by the time this is all over, the animatronics that are inside him are like, okay, this body is deteriorating too fast, we have to do something. And so they all expel themselves into the sewers and start living in the sewers. And they just kind of leave his corpse just standing there in the middle of the street.
What the fuck? What?
Yeah. And then, after a little while of this happening, for some reason, still can't quite explain it because he's not a child, for some reason, his soul manages to reconnect with his body, and he gets control of his body again.
That...
And so Michael, this actual rotting corpse has his human body back.
Sure.
And he sews
Sure.
himself up, and he
Sure.
goes about his life.
Sure. This makes total sense. This
And
makes
so
total
because
sense.
of these events, he goes and starts applying for jobs at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to find out more about where his father went, to find out more about what's happening, to go off and try and end things. So, of course, his first job, Michael's first job, was the underground facility where he was a technician. Sister Location was his first job.
Oh.
So this takes place somewhere before FNAF 1, but after... Before FNAF 2, but after FNAF 4. So somewhere between 1983 and 1987 is when Michael dies. And his sister and mom and brother are already dead at this point. This whole underground facility with all of these animatronics is in the 80s. You thought it was in the future, but it's in the 80s.
In the fucking 80s.
So, Michael then goes and gets a job at Freddy Fazbear's, where Jeremy was the night guard. FNAF 2. And he's covering up his tracks, he's changing his name, and he applies for the job there as Fritz Smith, who works there for exactly one day before the place gets shut down for investigations. Checks out?
Checks out. This is checking out.
Okay, so the place gets shut down. They do some rebranding, whatever. He goes to apply at a different place. 1993. He's like, okay, changing my name's annoying. I'm just going to apply with a different last name. So, Mike Schmidt. He works the whole time there. He figures out phone guy situation, blah, blah, blah. He's learning more about this as he goes. Time goes on. 30 years pass. He applies for the job at the Fazbear Frights location, where he is finally reconnected with his father, who is Springtrap.
Yes.
Also, every time he's been fired from a location, his pink slip says body odor. He's a literal rotting corpse.
Oh. This makes sense. This makes
Tampering
sense.
with animatronics as well, because he was a technician for the delivery service. Checks out?
Yeah.
And so him experimenting with, like, changing the AI of the animatronics and stuff like that also checks out, because that is something that he can do and has done before. Also, the fact that William's his dad, who is the person who created the animatronics, it makes sense that he would be a pretty good technician with it if he stuck around his father at all.
Yeah.
So now things make a lot more sense. You kind of think it's, like, super convoluted when you see it from a certain angle.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, so Michael's been there the whole time. We aren't playing as different characters. The only time we've played as a different character was Jeremy for the first 5 nights of FNAF 2. Every other time has been Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let us continue. He reunites with his father in FNAF 3. He burns down the Fazbear Frights location before it's open to the public, thinking that's all he needs to do. It's not. There is the newspaper at the end of FNAF 3 that when you brighten up the image, Springtrap is in the background of the image.
Oh, cool.
You can see him there.
Springtrap.
It's a little Easter egg. You have to actually download the image and brighten it up in order to see him, which is like clever.
Yeah.
So then Henry Emily, for the first time since the franchise's inception, since Fredbear's Family Diner in 1983, we see Henry again as this person who starts up this Freddy Fazbear's Pizza restaurant, and starts luring animatronics that he finds on the streets and stuff like that, because they're just around. They roam the wild sometimes.
Weird, but okay.
Like kind of Bigfoot situation. Like, oh, a couple of the animatronics are living in the sewers and have been for like 30 years now. That also, like, is the FNAF universe's way of explaining the whole myth of alligators and crocodiles in sewers. It's stupid, but it makes sense. That again, this is a multi-million-dollar franchise at this point. They can just pop up restaurants wherever the fuck they please. And so he goes to Utah, starts up another restaurant there, hires Michael Afton, unbeknownst to Michael at this point, that Henry is the one running this location, and says, hey, we would like you to do interviews with these animatronics that we find and see if they're worth salvaging. Also, at this point, the AI in the animatronics is, like, super snappy. Like, they are able to talk. They are able to answer questions. They have this AI system that makes them pretty much as intelligent as people.
Oh, lovely.
And so they have full thought. And so they all get lured to this location. You, playing Michael, are in charge of this location, managing it. You're doing the interviews with the animatronics. The animatronics are Baby, who is a scrapped mess of parts and wires, and who, while living in the sewers, replaced one of her arms with the scooper that she used to nab kids with. So now she has this giant claw arm, also putting some relevance to the crocodiles in the sewers myth.
Yeah.
And you have Molten Freddy, who is this amalgamation of wires. Also, some of the wires that were part of what was controlling Michael when he was scooped. But that is what's left of the puppet. Or, no, that's what's left of the other ones that were there. Never mind, not the puppet. The puppet is still around. He was the first kid that died. He is like hiding inside of this one that they just call Lefty. But he's the puppet. We've also got Springtrap. They managed to find his body and lure him into this location, and they kind of just hide them upstairs at this other place where they just, like, they interview them. They're like, we will keep them here. it's like this metal box that they can't escape from, but it's also where they put the office. And so you're like dealing with the location. Also, this game is called Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. So essentially, it plays like a tycoon game where you build the pizzeria, and like you upgrade everything and you buy the animatronics that you want and stuff like that. And then at night, you do the interviews and you do the maintenance of the restaurant itself. You order supplies, you buy advertising spaces, and defend yourself from animatronics, just like any restaurant owner.
As you do. I'm sure they do that down at Chuck E. Cheese too. They're just like, oh
Yeah.
man, oh, better get out the shotgun.
So, working in this location, you are still Michael. You are still a rotting corpse. But now, with the help of Henry, you have successfully lured all of these other figures and animatronics into this location. You keep them facilitated there in a place where they cannot escape. And then, at the end of it all, once you finally have everyone you need, Henry comes back to set the place on fire and finish it for good. Now, as you know, this is FNAF, so it's not finished for good. But
there's still more games, I'm pretty sure.
There is.
How many more games is there?
Henry is just like, he talks to each of them individually. And he's like, Elizabeth, I'm sorry this happened to you, but now you can rest in peace. He talks to the first child. He's like, I know you're angry, but you did the best you could. Now you can rest in peace. He talks to Springtrap or William Afton, and he's just like, you were my best friend. You took advantage of me. And I hope that, by God's grace, you burn in the fire of hell for the rest of eternity.
Damn.
And
I mean, fair.
And then finally he addresses Michael, who was the person who you play as in Pizzeria Simulator, which we just call FNAF 6. And he talks to Michael, and he's like, you have the option of leaving this place, but I'm sure after all of your travels and all of your searching, that this will be a good conclusion for you. You can also rest in peace if you so desire. And so Michael decides to stay there and burn with the rest of his family.
Jesus.
Finally getting the peace he deserves. And in the context of Scott being a nice Christian man, the idea that their souls are free, they all get to go up to heaven and be a family together again. Except for William, who gets to burn in hell.
Valid. Valid.
All right, how far in are we? 2 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah, this is about seeming how long I thought it would. I said it would be like a 3-hour long talk.
Yeah.
All right. The next game in the series. And there's 3 games left. So we've already done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. Yeah, so we have 3 left. Security Breach is the 10th one.
Oh my god.
Yeah. The next game is called Ultimate Custom Night. So every game has a custom night mode where you get to change the AI levels of the characters, do challenges, stuff like that. Ultimate Custom Night was supposed to just be a free DLC add-on for FNAF 6. But it's not. Because Scott ended up making it so big that it had to be its own game. So, it's called just Ultimate Custom Night. It's not even Five Nights at Freddy's Ultimate Custom Night. It's just Ultimate Custom Night. Because it was originally supposed to be DLC.
Yep.
And this is FNAF 7. And essentially, this game, you play a never-ending nightmare. And essentially, the story of this game is you are playing as William Afton in hell after the events of FNAF 6.
Damn.
So, essentially, there is 50 animatronics, all attacking you at once. If you include the random encounters, there's 54 animatronics, all attacking you at once. Okay?
Okay.
So, they all have AI levels that can go up. From 0 to 20. 20 is their highest.
Mm-hmm.
And you can essentially how do I explain this? The hardest difficulty in any FNAF game to date, in the first game, you could set their AI levels to 20, so you would have 420. There was 4 animatronics at level 20. In FNAF 2, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 920, I think it was. Maybe 1020. In the other games, there's varying levels. In this, you have 50-20.
All right. 50-20.
So, 50-20 mode. That is 50, again, not including the random encounters, which adds another 4. There's 50 at full level coming at you all at once. And essentially, the gameplay loop is you incrementally increase a couple at a time, and the higher it is, the higher your score will be. Which is why it's a custom night theme. You get to choose the levels you would like yourself, go from like an easier difficulty all the way up to the maximum. And the idea is, since you are playing as William Afton and you are trapped in hell, the hardest difficulty is like an impossible challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that would be cool, but the thing is that when Scott made the game, he made it specifically so that 50-20 mode, he didn't test it. He tested everything at lower difficulties. He did not test the game at higher difficulties. Because he didn't want it to be beatable.
Oh.
Because, story-wise, he's supposed to be trapped in hell for all eternity. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't test the game to see if it's beatable, if you try and make the game as unbeatable as possible, then story-wise, that works. But somebody beat it.
Somebody beat 50-20.
As far as I know, the number of people who have beat 50-20 is still, like, less than 50 people, and this game's been out for almost 4 years now.
Jesus.
But yes. So, essentially, this game did have an ending. It had a success. Essentially, if somebody was able to beat 50-20 mode, that means that the never-ending hell for William Afton was something he could live through. So, despite all of their efforts, all of the children, all of the everything, tormenting his soul for the rest of eternity, he still somehow survived.
Like he got out of hell?
He did.
Or really, he got out of hell instead of just being like, oh, I guess I can live with this hell forever.
So, then Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted. So that's Custom Night. Then we move on to Help Wanted. Help Wanted was the first game in the series not made by Scott. It was made by Steel Wool Studios. It was the VR game. And it essentially recreated lots of events from the first 5 games, FNAF 1, 2, 3, 4, and Sister Location, as VR experiences, but also added its own story to it. So the game, Help Wanted, was created in canon by a game company called Silver Parasol Games. And Silver Parasol was hired by Freddy Fazbear Entertainment to create a video game based on the rumors and myths around the Freddy Fazbear's franchise.
All right.
And also, canonically to FNAF, Five Nights at Freddy's as a video game franchise was created as a conspiracy theory by an indie game developer named Scott Cawthon.
So you're telling me Scott Cawthon decided, you know what?
Self-insert.
Self-insert is this fucking meta. Just insert yourself fucking back in.
And
like
so
that.
Freddy Fazbear's, the entertainment franchise, sued Scott Cawthon, the in-game character, with defamation lawsuits over these games, and then stole his games to remake as VR horror experiences for Fazbear Entertainment fans.
Bruh.
Meta.
Meta as fuck. Why not insert myself into my own game?
There's literally
and then
like
just sue myself.
there's literally a
story.
point in Help Wanted where it's like the intro sequence to the game, and they're just like, yeah, some complete klutz made an indie game franchise about the rumors and myths, and it literally shows a picture of Scott.
Oh my god.
It's really funny. And so they recreate all this stuff. But of course, it's FNAF. It can't just be a VR remake of all the games. It has to have its own story. And so the story is that Fazbear Entertainment wanted to cut costs on the development of these games. And since the animatronics that they have cost so much and their AI is so intuitive, they essentially supplied Silver Parasol Games with a bunch of circuit boards and like data drives from the animatronics that they found at the burnt down location that you are in FNAF 6. They just found whatever remained and gave it to this game development studio and said, plug these in, see if you can salvage any code so we can cut down on costs. And so somehow the programming language that they use in these animatronics was somehow compatible with Unreal Engine 5.
Sure.
We don't question it.
Well, we do, but just...
And so they were able to import AI from the real life animatronics as the AI for the animatronics in their VR game. And were able to cut down on costs that way. So in doing so, they ended up creating essentially like what's it called when you make something forever? What's it called?
Immortalize?
Yeah, they immortalize them in these. Now, some of the circuits and like hard drives and shit like that they put into this, given the fact that they were from the FNAF 6 location, had more data than just what was for the AI of the animatronics on them. Because for some reason, ghosts being able to control robots somehow means that those ghosts can be stored as data on their disks. Don't ask.
Why not? Why not? Why
Don't
not?
ask. We don't question it. So one of the hard drives that they put in there happened to be from Springtrap, which is so cool. Just great. And being that his soul is so powerful, what remained of it on that drive ended up taking form in this VR game and ended up becoming Glitch Trap. Or, as it's actually called in the game files, which is a much cooler name, Malhare.
Ooh, that is a much cooler name than Glitch Trap.
Glitch Trap is cool, but like malware, hair, Malhare, that's fucking genius.
That is a very good one.
Anyway, so he basically comes to life, and given that he created all these robots in the first place, I guess that decides that he's really good at programming, even if it's in Unreal Engine 5.
Sure.
And he essentially takes control of the entire VR game and recreates it for his purpose. And his purpose is to essentially hypnotize one of the beta testers into becoming his proxy, or into becoming his servant, in a way. Now, one of the beta testers is named Vanessa.
Oh, I've heard that name before.
Yes. So, Vanessa's a beta tester for this game. She ends up finding Malhare in the game and starts talking with him. He understands her. He can hear her. They, like, know each other on, like, a personal level. And he convinces her to bring him back to life. And as all of this is happening, the Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex is in production.
Is that the one that is in
Security Breach.
Security Breach? Okay.
So, then we're going to skip a bunch of the boring stuff in Help Wanted because there's a lot of really stupid shit that happens in there. There's another person named Jeremy who is also a beta tester, but he ends up, like, not being able to, like, he's influenced a lot by Malhare, but, like, is not able to go through with it. And if I recall correctly, I believe he killed himself. But don't quote me on that. I don't quite remember. But I do know he dies. So that's a second Jeremy, completely separate from the first Jeremy. Um, anyway, security breach then rolls around. And it's this giant fucking mall themed after the 80s. You know
Oh
how
yeah.
security breach goes.
Yeah.
And Vanessa works there as a security guard. Vanessa is the only security guard. She is the only human employee that works there after hours. And this is entirely by her own design. The mall gets a message from the top, which essentially she puts in her application to become a security guard. They're like, you are not qualified for this. You have literally had like retail jobs and you worked as a beta tester at a game company. Like, you are not qualified to be a security guard at our fucking giant mall. And they get another message from the top that says, hire her. She's great for the job. And so they do. And she goes through training, and she's absolutely shit at her job. But that's fine. And then they get another message from the top that essentially is like, hey, we would like to boost the production on our security bots, and have all of our mall security just be the robots and Vanessa. Fire everyone else.
Oh.
And so they have this mass layoff of employees. They fire all the kitchen workers. They fire all of the security guards. They fire like a bunch of the like ticket masters. They fire hundreds of employees across this mall. And Vanessa is the only one that is there after hours. They still have some humans, but they're not as common as the robots. And Vanessa, being alone there every night, uses this to her advantage. And they built this pizzaplex on top of the location from FNAF 6, which is the one that burned down. Okay, are you keeping up?
I'm trying. I'm really trying. There's a
Okay.
lot of information to take in here. This is like trying to fucking... I mean, this is much simpler to understand than any other game franchise that I've been introduced to. Like, trying to fucking understand Kingdom Hearts is not possible because it doesn't make sense at all, and no
Kingdom
one will
Hearts is
ever...
pretty easy.
No.
Do you want me
No.
to do another one of these on Kingdom Hearts? I swear to God, it'll be a 10-minute long episode total.
I doubt that. I feel like that one would take a half day.
You want a quick recap of Kingdom Hearts? I can give you one in like less than 30 seconds.
Do it.
Okay, Sora and his friends live on an island. They live with their parents. The island gets overtaken by darkness. His friends get kidnapped. He has a key that unlocks darkness. So he basically goes through various worlds trying to unlock the darkness, make it weaker, on his quest to find his friends. I explained all of Kingdom Hearts.
There's the connections between the characters that don't make sense, but I honestly don't really fucking care at this point.
It's like the simplest form of it. Anyway, okay, so yeah. The mall, they fire hundreds of employees. Vanessa is the only person that works there after dark. Just so happens that this homeless kid also finds his way into there on the same night that Vanessa is planning her big thing. It's not her plan. She doesn't mean for this to happen. Gregory is just this homeless child that ends up there.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, poor Gregory.
Poor Gregory.
Poor Gregory. And so she's like, on tonight of all nights, darn these fucking kids. But her plan is to finally revive Afton. She has as much parts as she was able to salvage. She's doing this literally in the what remains of the FNAF 6 restaurant where the rest of him was. And essentially, Gregory takes it upon himself after going through this location and stuff like that. He takes it upon himself to try and stop Vanessa with Freddy's help, because for some reason, Freddy isn't able to be hacked by Vanessa, but she can control everyone else.
This is why we loved the Freddy in that game.
We love Freddy in that game.
We huggable.
Huggable. Yeah, so that's that. Gregory finds his way down. Blah, blah, blah. And there are multiple endings, but the ending that is canon, in theory, is where you don't even go down into the depths and figure out that William Afton's being brought back to life. The actual ending that is canon, as far as it seems at this moment in time, is one where you figure out who Vanessa is. You find out, like, that she was raised to she was very, like, lonely as a child. She goes through a lot of therapy. She doesn't talk to people very often. She's very to herself. But she opened up to William when she found him in that VR game. And trusts him. Also, as it would turn out, you can find her therapy tapes. They are all taped for some reason. Because Freddy Fazbear's, as a company, provides therapists for their employees. Free of charge.
Weirdly forward thinking, but go on.
Yeah, but I feel like if you as a company have the need to assign a therapist to every one of your employees, maybe you're doing something wrong if all of your employees need therapy.
Yeah.
But anytime any of her therapists ask her about her past and try to dig deeper into who she is as a person, her therapist disappears. And they get her a new one the next week. The moment she tells anybody anything about her private life, they disappear. And she has no clue why. She just knows that, oh, I have a different therapist this week. Cool.
Is there... My guess is like some sort of either like an animatronic controlled by Afton that is taking them all away to prevent them knowing, or she's doing this unbeknownst to herself because she's been brainwashed by the VR game.
Interesting theory.
Personally,
I believe it's just the company is making them disappear because they don't want any actual truth about their past to come out. Despite having made a licensed VR game about their fucked up past. But we won't get into that. Also in these therapy tapes, we find out that William Afton is related to Vanessa.
Oh.
I don't remember exactly how. I can't remember if he's like her grandpa or something to that effect. But I don't know how exactly they're related. I don't like it.
Crazy runs in the family, That's just how it is.
Also, I think Security Breach, if I'm correct, takes place in like the 2050s. Like
That sounds about right.
it's way in the future. So like their relation could even be just like, oh, it's my great great uncle or some shit like that, you know?
Yeah.
And like supposedly the reason why she wanted to get involved with the VR game in the first place is because she wanted to like get closer to knowing what happened, and then she ended up becoming part of the problem, like completely unbeknownst to her. She is referred to as a reluctant follower, meaning like even though she's doing all this on purpose, maybe she doesn't want to be doing this. Which is a whole thing. Which, you know, there's been a theme with a lot of stories recently, like in like Disney movies and like other media, where villains, more often than not recently, are only villains because they are made to be that way based on like family ties. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have Encanto, you have Turning Red, where it's just like, oh, our parents just raised us this way. That's why we are the way we are. And that makes them the villain. Even though it's like just the way that they were brought up. And so they think that's how they should bring up their kids too, kind of situation. It's very common recently that family past and stuff like that and emotional baggage is the reason why people become the villains that we see them as, which is very intriguing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, emotional baggage can do a lot to a person.
it really
So,
can.
I can understand why that is a common trope in a lot of these now. Is like
Family
I was made to be this way.
family trauma is hardcore.
trauma do some crazy shit. I tell you,
It do.
it do some crazy shit.
And yeah, the canon ending essentially relates to Gregory and Freddy find out who Vanessa is. They find out that Vanny and Vanessa are the same person, in quotations. And they manage to end up getting her out of there. They end up essentially taking Freddy with them, and Vanessa, Gregory, and Freddy all escape. And roll credits, they manage to convince Vanessa that what she's doing is wrong, and they get her out of her hypnosis. And
Happy ending? Question mark.
They all go sit on a hill eating ice cream under the sunset.
Aw, how nice.
Now, that ending is not the final, because they're doing a DLC called Ruin, which takes place years after that.
Oh, good. Good.
Which we know nothing about yet, besides the fact that you play as a little girl who finds her way into the Pizzaplex years after it's been abandoned. This also means, though, that all of the part of the game where you go underground into the FNAF 6 location and you find Springtrap there, and you have that fight with him, is for nothing. That means that in this ending where you save Vanessa and you go off with her and Freddy and you like try and live a happy life, all that time William Afton is still in the basement of that building. He's still alive.
They can't. What? Just die.
Just die,
Already.
right? That also means that, like, the amalgamation that's down there, there's an amalgamation of, like, all of the other animatronics that were inside the pizzeria when it burned. They're all also still alive in this giant bundle of wires for some reason. Yeah, that's also all still down there.
Hmm.
It's stupid. I'm just hoping that the DLC for Security Breach gives some closure to that game. Because, like, having Gregory and Vanessa and Freddy all escape and whatever is, like, cool. That's great. However, literally there is zero resolve to that game, considering that is the ending. All the other endings are not canon. That's the canon ending.
Why would you have other endings if they're not canon?
Because it gives player choice and freedom to do what you want.
That's
Yeah.
This is the only ending that actually matters. All the other endings are just ooh, fancy. You found them, neat.
I mean, there's also an ending where you kill Vanny.
Why not? This would be fun.
Yep. And there's also, I believe there's a post-credits scene where, like, even though you leave the building with Vanessa, there's another Vanessa that is still in the mall. So Vanny and Vanessa are still probably two different people, even though they aren't, but they are.
You're losing me now. You're honestly losing me at this point.
Yeah, this is why people don't like Security Breach.
Understandable. I'm getting confused because there's multiple endings. One of them's canon, the others are not, and there's like all these other like.
I mean, pretty much every FNAF game since FNAF 3 has multiple endings. But it just, like, which one is canon is very clear, usually. They always do, like, a star rating for the ending, and the one that has 3 stars is always the one that's canon. The other endings are just, like, bad ending, neutral ending, this ending you kind of fucked up and it was funny. You know, those kinds of things. Yeah. Anyway, that's the story. That's it.
I have a lot to think about here.
Any questions?
None that I can absolutely think of in my head.
Okay.
Like, I'm gonna have to like go over this in my head like a million times in order to like fully be like, okay, this happened.
You know what the next step should be?
Crying.
You and me play through the games.
No.
Just like a couple of them.
I don't like horror games.
I mean, you don't have to play. You can just, like, watch me play it, and then, like, we'll just do, like, single episodes on a couple of them. Because
maybe
it really doesn't matter.
Like,
come on, that'd be fun.
Maybe. I'm still not, like, I don't like feeling scared or on edge, and those games do a lot of that to me.
I mean, they are horror.
Yeah, I don't like horror. I don't like it at all. I like feeling very calm, collected, and not at all worried. Which, I mean, has not happened to me for a long time. But you know what? I don't need to feel scared. I need to feel safe.
Anyway, so that is the whole series.
That's the entire thing. That's the entire nearly. This is about as long as I thought it would take. I thought it would take, probably about 3 hours or something.
Yeah, that's how long I said as well. We guessed it.
We guessed it. We guessed it correctly.
So, in recap, William and Henry start a business. This business ends up with William's daughter dying. He's like, oh, that sucks. Wait, her soul is possessing this thing. Let's do more with that. He kills a bunch of kids, accidentally gets his own kids killed again, keeps doing this experimentation, finds Remnant, which is essentially harvested from children's souls, which can keep him alive forever. And his own son burns him down, and then he possesses his granddaughter or someone to try and bring him back to life. And here we are today.
Yep.
Good, like, 3 or 4 sentence recap.
Yeah, that about encapsulates everything that we've talked about, or that you've talked about to me in the past 3 hours.
Yeah. There you go. Does that satisfy?
Yeah, now I understand.
Now I understand. You can see why the mystery of it all is, like, kind of... It's like, super popular.
I could see the intrigue in it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm still not one for the games themselves, but the story behind them is very intriguing.
Maybe you and I should play Lego FNAF together.
It's
real. It's a thing.
Oh, fuck off.
It's remakes of all the games, but in Lego.
Oh my fucking god.
And it's funny, because whenever Phone Guy talks, he goes...
Got the fucking Lego speed.
He does the mumble talk. Yeah, it's great. Lego FNAF is fantastic.
I mean, at first I'd be like, God damn it! But I'm just honestly, I'm not surprised.
It's not like it's like a fan game, but
Okay. I was searching it on
it's
Steam and
entertaining.
I couldn't find anything.
Yeah,
Also,
no, it's not on Steam.
I found out I do own one Five Nights at Freddy's game for some reason.
Isn't it like 3?
Yeah, I own 3.
Yeah.
I don't know why I own 3. According to Steam, I haven't played the game since 2016.
That checks out. I mean, yeah, the game came out in 2015? It came out in 2015. So that kind of checks out.
I don't know why I own it. I also don't know why I own Lego Worlds, but that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing. What a shit game. Anyway, so this has been our big Five Nights at Freddy's recap.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming in.
Don't forget to like or subscribe. You know, it depends on what platform if you're on. If you're on Spotify, hit a follow.
If you're on Spotify, you're the only one. Thank you.
You're the only one.
Please follow our podcast.
Please.
If you're listening on Anchor, you're also the only one.
Who the hell listens on Anchor?
Considering Anchor is owned by Spotify.
I mean, I don't go out and look for podcasts on Anchor.
Yeah, I just use Anchor to host podcasts.
Yeah, because it's free. We
Yes.
transferred everything from Jamacast over to there a while back, just so then we wouldn't have to pay for SoundCloud.
Yeah. Joy o' bliss.
Because who the hell listens to podcasts on SoundCloud?
Oh, we got a few views on there.
Yeah, a couple. That's a treat.
Specifically on the one episode that we deleted.
Yep, on that one episode.
That one episode with that one guy.
That one guy.
That one guy who
we won't
diddled
name.
that one kid. Or maybe multiple. We don't know. These are just allegations. He allegedly diddled that one kid.
Yeah.
But we don't have any proof.
We just don't talk to them. We just don't talk to them.
We don't talk about them. Or we try not to. I do talk about them, actually. I shit talk them constantly.
As you should.
Anyway.
You should.
Thank you so much. Everybody's going to be so curious as to who the fuck we're talking about, and we cannot divulge that information.
We will not say.
We will not say.
Even if you ask us, we will not say.
Though that being said, if they do get arrested, then we will say.
We will say at that point if that's what happens.
And God, do I hope that happens. Anyway.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. There's not really much to watch besides our heads bobbing on the left and right side of the screens, but, you know.
Yeah. That's it.
That's it. We're going to potentially record some Legend of Zelda now. And we're going to go about our lives.
I'm also very hungry.
I am also very hungry. I also have to see what I'm doing for music thing today.
Yeah.
So we shall see.
All right.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
Bye.